QED 2017 is fast approaching, and you don't want to miss it. In the past, QED has brought you the Arrows of Time, the origin of recording, an escape from the Westboro Baptists, the sex bias of sex science, and all manner of other science, pseudoscience, activism, slacktivism, and more. Plus, insects for breakfast. Yum. QED 2017 takes place on the 14th and 15th of October in Manchester, England. We've already announced speakers like Sophie Wilson, co-inventor of the ARM computer chip, Simon Singh, who will be showing how to crack a genuine Enigma machine, Phil Scraton talking through the real-life cover-up of the Hillsborough tragedy, and physicists Helen Chersky and Tim O'Brien. We'll have a live show from the Parapod Boys, and the whole event will be emceed by ace magician Dave Annick. Have some laughs, meet some new friends, make new connections, all for only £109, including all the main stage talks, panels, podcasts, workshops, our Saturday night entertainment, and lots more. Check out qedcom.org for details. We'll see you in October.
It is Thursday, the 10th of August, 2017, and you are listening to Skeptics with a K, the podcast for science, reason, and critical thinking. Skeptics with a K is a production of the Merseyside Skeptic Society, a non-profit organisation for the promotion of scientific skepticism on Merseyside, around the UK, and internationally. I am your host, Mike Hall. With me today is Marsh.
Hello.
And Alice.
Hello.
So this is episode 204.
204, which is...
204 is no content. So
we'll see you next time.
I was very tempted to just put out an hour and a half of silence for this episode, like a Brian Dunning spoof.
Yeah. Which Brian Dunning spoof?
He did an episode on homeopathy.
Oh, that Brian Dunning spoof.
Yeah,
okay,
where he just did the intro and then silence and then like the outro. I thought we could do that.
That's sneaky.
No content, 204, no content. I didn't mention last episode was 203, which was my favourite one, and I'd forgotten about it. So 203 is non-authoritative content.
Oh,
which is absolutely perfect.
That would have been perfect for last show.
That is a description of Skeptics.
It is absolutely perfect for the show. And in fact, Jake Archibald's podcast is HTTP 203 for that reason, because it is non-authoritative content. It's like, this is just like what we reckon,
just stuff what we think.
So yeah, that was 203. Episode 206 is going to be partial content.
Okay.
So we'll talk a bit of shit.
We'll get halfway through the show
and a bit of skepticism.
We'll just stop stories halfway through.
So yeah, this is episode 204. So no content this episode. So for that reason, I'm going to start off with a ridiculous story.
Okay.
So I was lying in bed, and the remote control.
Full suit.
Obviously.
Okay.
Full suit and boots.
The remote control is sitting on the bedside table next to me, and Katie wanted to turn the telly up. She said, "Can you pass me the remote control?" I said, "Hang on a second." She didn't want to wait to get the remote control, so she just leaned over to grab the remote control. But as she leaned over to me, she put her weight on my chest, and a very unexpected thing happened when she put the weight on my chest. Is I went, "Oh!" as I just unexpectedly exhaled. And it just caught my vocal cords on the way past, and this involuntary...
Like you were a...
honk.
Like you're a bagpipe, basically.
Yes.
You were squeezed like a bagpipe.
Like a massive human bagpipe. Just, oh! The utterly inhuman noise just came like honking from my throat.
Blimey.
It was quite remarkable. And I'm thinking... where the fuck that noise come from?
Yeah.
Before I'd realised that
it came from you.
It had kind of leapt from my throat. It's an unusual thing. It wasn't something that I expected to happen. Not something that because normally someone, if they're going to put their weight on you,
yeah,
you brace for that.
Yeah, you recognise it coming. Yeah,
and you see it coming. It was just the unexpected deflation, like a massive human whoopee cushion. I just kind of went, oh! It was very, very odd. So that's what I've been up to recently.
You've been honking.
Honking like a whoopee cushion. And I didn't expect that to be a sentence I ever said in my life.
Honking like a whoopee cushion actually played at the Indie Tracks Festival that were on the weekend.
Yeah,
they were good. Yeah.
Oddly enough, the title of my autobiography is
it's nice.
Honking like a whoopee cushion, the life and times of Mike Hall.
Yeah.
So what have you guys been doing? You've been away. You went to Indie Tracks, didn't you?
We did. We went to our Indie Pop Festival in Derbyshire, near where Alice lives, which we'd now done for last time. Well, where you have previously lived.
I have previously lived there. I don't currently live there.
Near where your parents and family live.
Yeah.
And their chickens and horses and hot tub.
Yeah, they've got a new hot tub.
They've got
They
a hot
bought
tub?
a hot
They bought a hot tub.
My parents are ridiculous. There was I don't know if you heard about like the Amazon Prime deals thing. They had a Prime Day.
They had a
It was fucking everywhere.
Super smashing great day.
I saw Amazon had a Prime Day. Yeah.
And on the Amazon Prime Day, they bought a hot tub and have inflated it in their back garden.
An inflatable hot tub.
An inflatable hot tub. Quite a substantial hot tub. You saw it. We went over to my parents' house.
It was pretty robust.
A robust inflatable hot tub.
Yeah.
I like the idea that on Amazon Prime Day, you're not allowed to buy things in like multiples of 2 or anything like that.
Yeah.
You can buy 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11.
Yeah.
But you can't buy 8 of anything.
No.
Yeah, so they've got a hot tub now, along with.
So what's the definition of a hot tub? What's the difference between a hot tub and a bath?
It's outside.
A, it's outside. B, this has got like jets and things.
Okay.
So it's
got like squirty
it's
bits.
like a
jacuzzi
type thing.
Does it bubble?
It bubbles in terms of the jacuzziing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right.
It would also bubble like a bath if you put bubble bath in it. But,
Yeah. Right.
It's probably not a good idea.
And it would bubble like sparkling water if you filled it with sparkling water, but that would be a really bad idea. And it would go flat because you leave the water in there for like a month or something.
Yeah, and leave it like
On.
switched on.
At all times.
Like, it is at a lower temperature at all times.
So it's just sitting there constantly bubbling like a...
not bubbling.
Like a
the
bubble.
bubbles,
Not bubbling,
the
but
bubbles come on and off. And
warming.
like the filter system comes on and off. But,
Right, okay.
And the temperature, it never, like...
This
you
is
just don't,
very advanced for an inflatable item.
It's incredible. You don't let it ever get to fully cold because it would take forever to heat back up because it's huge.
Okay.
It does feel like a bath. Very bizarre.
I put my hand in it. It was quite pleasant. It was quite warm.
Because you get like inflatable like paddling pools where the walls are inflatable, but just a little bit of lean on them and they go,
oh. Yeah, exactly.
and all the water kind of spills out. And it's
No, you
useless, but
you can sit on the edges of this.
it's more robust.
It's like a leatherette kind of...
Well, like a bouncy castle.
Like a bouncy castle,
even
but like
more rigid.
robust.
But more rigid than
An
a bouncy
overly
castle.
filled bouncy castle.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
An overinflated bouncy castle that honks when you lean
It's
on
completely unnecessary.
It is unnecessary.
Nobody needs a hot tub in their back garden.
In Derbyshire.
It rained like the entire weekend.
It did rain the entire weekend. Our tent sprang a leak on one of the nights. It fucking pissed it down.
Yeah.
Because me, Nicola and Alice were in our the big British castle that me and Nicola have, this five-man tent.
Yes.
5-person tent. I think we need to change the system there.
We could do better than
I think,
that. We
yeah,
can do better
exactly.
than
Come
that,
on,
yeah.
come on, guys. Come on, tent
we were
manufacturers.
not even like mostly men in that tent. It
No,
was me
no.
and
I
Nicola.
was outnumbered.
So a 5-berth tent.
A 5-berth
tent.
tent.
Yeah.
So we were in that tent and absolutely pissed it down. And then one of the nights I was just getting into bed on the double mattress that me and Nicola were sharing, and I just got dripped on in the face. I was like, oh, this isn't good. And it turns out one of the seals have kind of gone on to me.
Waterboarded by nature.
I was waterboarded by nature.
Luckily, the hanging, like I brought some hanging lights, like solar powered lights.
Yeah, they were great.
Which are really, really good. And I'd hung one of them up in the room that the leak was in, and turns out it like holds onto water. So I think the bedding was all dry in the morning.
Yeah,
I think it had collected all the water.
It had, yeah. It was perfect. It was a perfect system. But
I don't know if the lights are okay, but they were filled with water.
So how was India Tracks? Was it fun? Did you have a good time?
Yeah, it was really good.
Terrible. There was a lot of train-based Instagram action, I noticed.
It's held like in a train museum,
train
steam
museum,
train museum.
We sat on the tiny little miniature train again. Nicola didn't break it this time. It was
we did.
fully
We went
functional.
on a little miniaturized.
That's a throwback
steam
to an
train
episode
thing
from about a year
about
ago.
a year ago.
Roughly,
So that's how that works.
No, it was nice, and we saw some decent music.
We saw some good
We got
music.
in some absolutely
We
horrendous
saw some bands
thunderstorms.
that Mike would like the name of. We saw a band called Penis.
Oh, band called
Nice.
Penis. Peaneess.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sneaky, the way they've done that. Obviously,
Peanuts.
you guys saw Honking Like a Whoopee Cushion.
We saw Honking Like a Whoopee
They were
Cushion.
very good.
We saw a band
Yeah.
called Crywank.
We did see a band called Crywank.
Okay.
They weren't that good.
They weren't great.
No,
They were okay.
I mean,
You're right.
nor is a Crywank case.
They were exactly what you'd expect a band called Crywank to be like as well. Really. They were a little bit pretentious, a little bit emo, but they were all right. We saw the Just Jones again. Really like the Just
They were very
Jones. Saw Grace Petrie. What was great was Just Jones were on the main stage. Grace Petrie was on the secondary stage, which is indoors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Midway through the Just Jones set, the heavens open and it fucking comes down. Absolutely hammers down. So everybody, just as a Just Jones finish, everybody rushes into the indoor bit where Grace Petrie is. Turns out it was just after she'd played the song about how UKIP think lesbians cause floods. So she sang the song, If I Could Cause a Flood, I Would. And then the heavens open and a load of people get in. And then she was also saying, because she must have got a massive more influx of people for that gig. And she said, I like the idea that these are all Tories brought in by the rain. Like, shut the gates, we'll keep them in. But that was really good. It was really that was fun.
It was a bit wet, but it wasn't too bad. We had dry weather on Saturday.
Right.
We had a lot of rain Saturday night, and it rained a lot Sunday afternoon, but it was okay. But there's another festival in Derbyshire that's literally only a few miles away. We drove past it on our way in, called Why Not Festival. It's substantially bigger than Indie Tracks.
I mean, why not?
Well, here's why not.
And they had to cancel the festival on Sunday.
Why not?
Because the rain apparently was torrential. I didn't ever see any rain that was necessarily torrential.
But they were more field-based.
They were more
because Indie Tracks is all
field-based.
kind of, there's a lot of kind of facilities and things there and a lot of gravel and stuff.
But for a festival in a field in Britain, they weren't prepared enough for the rain, and people got their cars stuck. They had to cancel a load of the headlining acts. The police had to put out a warning because all the tents were getting broken into and people having stuff nicked.
Didn't the police say, don't leave your tent unattended?
Yeah.
Yeah, at a music festival. Don't leave your tent unattended, it might get robbed.
On the Sunday, they had to spend hours digging people's cars out of the mud because they were all stuck in the mud. Yeah, so they had to cancel that festival.
See, this is why QED takes place in a hotel.
Indoors.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Take place in a hotel, because I think a field-based QED, I'm not sure would fly.
Maybe not in October either.
You never know, it might be all right.
Maybe. Would you know?
If it was in a little tiny steam engine.
Yeah. It was full on tweet. But disastrous, went to go to the Forklift Truck Museum to show Karen, Forklift Truck Museum, shut. It still exists.
No, it's
the guy was on
closed.
holiday, and we were like, "Oh, can we get in?" He said, "Oh, we don't really open it during the festival." I said, well, bollocks, we've been every bloody year. No, they're not going to open it during the festival anymore.
No.
So we didn't get to see what was basically a large room filled with old machinery, which is all the museum basically was.
We can make a trip of it. We can take a day trip down to Derbyshire.
He did say it'll be open next Friday afternoon. I said, no, we're not coming all this way just for the Forklift Truck Museum.
There's other stuff to do in Derbyshire. We could go and spend a day in Derbyshire.
We could. I'm not sure I'd want to do the drive again. Driving back, so we stayed for like the headline act on the Sunday, and then we drove. We actually had the campsite booked for the Sunday night, but it was better all round that we came back Sunday night, and then Nicola wasn't like travelling a mile on Monday.
Sure.
So we set off at about 11 o'clock at night to do the 2.5-3 hour drive back from Derbyshire, which is already pretty difficult because I'd been up since about 7 with the light. I hadn't really slept since 7, so I'm driving back.
Now, I struggle with that in the morning with the daylight wakes me up basically, and then all right, 5 a.m. Well, I guess
and the people around kind of knocking about and stuff. So driving down a road that was fairly dark, 60 miles an hour on a dual carriageway. Well, I think it was a single carriageway, but we were in about 60, 70 miles an hour. There's a sign that says something as we go past, and we're going past quite quickly, and it's not very well lit. And then in the middle of the road, there's a circle with an arrow pointing left, which seems to be floating in the middle of the road on a 60 mile an hour road in pitch black. And I thought, what's that mean? Fuck, that's a roundabout. Slammed the brakes on, and it was a roundabout that had no lights on it at all.
Wow.
Didn't have the usual roundabout with the directions all off, because it was a brand new roundabout. Had to slam the brakes on. Went past a crash on that roundabout. There was a car already crashed into one of the signs on that roundabout.
Wow.
Alice looked up afterwards. There were 10 crashes in 48 hours at that roundabout, because it was just in the middle of a fucking dual carriageway, national speed limit. Suddenly it dropped onto a roundabout at 1 in the, about like what, 11,
it was
12
about
at night,
11, yeah. The first crash was that Sunday at 10, and the police considered closing the road for that crash. Didn't, and then there were 10 more in 48
Good
hours,
Lord.
or 9 more in 48 hours.
Absolutely incredible.
Just cars like strewn on the... People had abandoned their cars, just strewn on the roundabout, stuck on the roundabout.
Who fucking puts a roundabout down and doesn't stick a light bulb on it? That's
crazy.
Absolutely insane.
So, listeners, if you work for the Highways Agency, podcast at merseyside.org.uk, we've got some
an insurance
choice
fucking claim
words
for you. Yeah. There are few things that the media love more than newfangled ways to get into shape and lose weight. So it's no surprise to see a lengthy article in the Daily Mail just last week, which was titled, "Can You Massage Away Your Muffin Top? Emerging technique claims to give you a flat stomach and make you feel happier and healthier." This is one of those articles that take the format of a journalist going off and trying something and then writing about their experience. It's one of those types
where they spend like 3 days doing a thing and they're like, oh yeah, it definitely like seemed to start to work.
Yeah, that's basically it. Exactly. Yeah. And they go off, they'll do a particular treatment, therapy, technique or diet, and they'll report back on their findings. In this particular case, it was a freelance writer by the name of Anna Maxted, who is a writer and an author, apparently. And I've seen that she's written for pretty much most of the mainstream news papers.
Sure.
And she's subjecting herself to this uncomfortable experience in the name of semi-gonzo journalism. I can't understand why people put themselves through weird, unusual, and uncomfortable experiences just to be able to investigate them. I think anybody who does that is a fucking idiot. I don't understand it in the slightest.
I wholeheartedly agree with you there.
Don't get that at all. So, Anna writes, deep tissue massage is usually considered a treat, but now I know it very much depends on the depth of tissue being massaged. Having my stomach area energetically kneaded as if it were an unwieldy lump of dough is far from relaxing. But this is no normal massage. It's VOT, an emerging treatment that could well improve my circulation, digestion, breathing, posture, and well-being. Plus, and this is the most appealing part, give me a flatter tummy. Now, they do tell us what VOT is. Do you want to hazard a guess at what this stomach kneading might be? VOT.
VOT. I mean,
something therapy.
T, I'm guessing, is therapy.
No, it's not actually.
Is it not? Okay.
It's in that
treatment.
No, but the other one that it could be. There's only 3 T words it could possibly be for a type of thing they're doing. So this is Visceral Osteopathy Technique.
Osteopathy.
Visceral Osteopathy Technique. So we're talking osteopathy. Chiropractic's barely more respectable cousin. If osteopathy isn't pseudoscience 101, it's definitely first semester. It's one of the things you'll pick up in the first semester of it.
It's a funny thing with osteopathy because, and American listeners are going, because you've got a distinction between British osteopathy and American osteopathy because the two schools diverged about 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And the American osteopaths incorporated more and more evidence-based medicine into their practice until now. It's basically a medical degree. It's got this side of woo on it.
That's it, basically, isn't it?
But it's essentially a medical degree.
They do 80% of a medical degree and 20% bullshit, essentially. So it's a bullshit-laden medical degree.
British osteopaths are just full-on woos.
We'll come to that, yeah.
Full-on woos.
Fortunately, Anna does explain in the article how VOT is meant to work. It says, the theory is that the connective tissue that covers the internal organs in the abdomen can tighten, reducing their mobility and causing digestive problems. Carefully stretching these fibers with a massage may increase blood supply to the area and stimulate the gut-to-brain connection, the signals the brain sends to the gut and vice versa, which prompt each organ to do its job more effectively.
Connective tissue has no way of communicating with anything that would communicate with the brain. In any way.
So I thought there was a lot to unpack here. Do you want to start unpacking this?
Alice, you're a resident expert on
connective tissue.
I don't know any mechanism by which connective tissue would necessarily tighten. That's not to say that it doesn't.
Well, yeah.
But I would want to know what the mechanism is for the first thing. For the second thing, there's no way your connective tissue communicates with anything. It's literally just connective tissue. It's fibrous proteins.
Yeah.
One thing that's really important to remember about connective tissue is that one of the things it distinctly lacks, including a blood supply, is nerves.
It lacks a blood supply.
There's no blood supply into your connective tissue. Like, it connects stuff. There's connective tissue around your circulation.
Yeah.
But connective tissue itself doesn't need blood because it doesn't need anything new.
It doesn't respire in itself.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's basically every single bit of this paragraph doesn't make a lot of sense because I was kind of unpicking it. So they said the theory is that the connective tissue that covers the internal organs. First of all, I was thinking, is that connective tissue? Because surely connective tissue is stuff that connects stuff to other bits. So it seems a bit weird that it's talking about covering it.
You get connective tissue in between things as well. So you get connective tissue. You've got a layer of connective tissue across your muscle, around your blood vessels.
Yeah.
You've kind of got connective tissue everywhere. So that makes sense. That's fine.
Okay, so that's fine. It says that can tighten, reducing the mobility and digestive problems of those organs. There's no evidence. Can it
by
tighten?
which mechanism, I don't know. What they would be talking about there. I don't think that there would be a mechanism by which connective tissue would tighten, depending on the type of connective tissue. There are
depending
lots
what
of
they mean
types.
by tighten as well. What do you mean by tighten? Is it getting smaller so the things
can tighten, ligaments can tighten, tendons can tighten. Ligaments and tendons, I guess, are maybe technically connective tissue.
But I don't think that's what they're talking about if you're talking about covering the organs. But also, how much evidence do they present that the tightening can reduce mobility and digestion? Zip. What does the mobility of those organs have to do with breathing, posture, and weight loss? Again, no idea. They don't present any evidence. This is just a big, long string of things they don't explain.
Yeah.
because they can't explain, because they don't. It doesn't work the way they say. But even accepting that there was an issue with the connective tissue and it did restrict digestion, how can an external massage stretch the fibers of internal connective tissue? Unless you're pulling stuff apart. That's the only way you're going to stretch connective tissue, is to take the two parts of your body that are connected by the connective tissue and pulling them apart. And I don't think that's what they're proposing this massage is doing as you're kneading. On top of that, how can stretched fibers improve blood supply, especially if you're saying that they don't have a blood supply? It's stretching those apparently fibers is not going to prompt new veins and capillaries to grow. I mean, the best you could possibly hope for
Nothing to do with connective tissue will promote growth of blood vessels and capillaries.
Yeah, the best you could hope for is that you rupture some capillaries and that might get blood to flow around, but that's called bruising. That's not going to improve anything.
They might be talking about whether it improves blood flow rather than blood supply, so you don't have any more ability to transport blood, but the vessels are more open. Might get with slightly increased temperature that you might get with massage. That's being incredibly charitable.
So you're warming them up. The best that they can do is warm you up. And the kneading, the osteopathic kneading, the best that it could be doing is making you warmer. It would be as effective as a hot water bottle. Less effective than a hot water bottle, yeah. There's a lot of baseless suppositions in all of this theory, and we're not going to address those in that article, which is a shame, because this is a 1,300-word article. I mean, for context, that's 3 times the size of the average news item on the Mail Online. And for further context, that's a third of the size of a US Skeptic magazine profile on how brave and wise and dreamy Milo Yiannopoulos is. Quick side note, that Skeptic magazine book review of Milo Yiannopoulos' new book, 3,700 words. I did a word count. 3,700 words on a book review.
Fawning words.
3,700. It's incredible. You'd have thought with all of those words they'd have found at least some time to question even one of Milo's claims, or even fit in so much as a cursory fact check or a modicum of, I don't know, skepticism in those 3,700 words. But apparently, when they wrote in their review, this is quoting the Skeptic Mag's review, where there is a genuine rape culture in the West, it comes from Islam. For example, in the face of severe refugee crisis over the past 2 years, Sweden has become the rape capital of Europe. Apparently, there just wasn't enough space in those 3,700 words to point out that Sweden isn't the rape capital of Europe. They just record rape statistics differently and have done since long before the current refugee crisis. It's got nothing to do with the refugee crisis, and it also isn't happening. Mm-hmm. I guess the book review was already so far over the word count they just couldn't squeeze in that bit of skepticism there. Still, nice to see the Skeptic magazine lavishing praise on, basically, Katie Hopkins cosplaying as Christopher Hitchens. Anyway, let's leave aside shoddy journalistic standards and a promotion of bigoted ideology and return to the Daily Mail. So, the osteopath at the heart of the Mail story is Dr. Yona Bramati, and apparently she believes that VOT may be particularly beneficial if you suffer from digestive problems like tension or stress. And when the Daily Mail says doctor, what they mean is she isn't a doctor. She's a doctor of osteopathy. Mm-hmm. In fact, she has a PhD, which was distressingly awarded to her by the University of Westminster for her work on the effects of visceral osteopathic techniques on the behaviour and gastrointestinal function of autistic children.
Whoa.
So she got a PhD for using VOT on autistic kids. Weirdly, I looked this up. She claims on her website it was even backed by the National Autistic Society, or sponsored or kind of promoted by the National Autistic Society, which, if true, is very, very odd. But basically, she gave tummy massages to autistic kids, got a PhD out of it, and now she calls herself doctor on her website, where she's making medical claims and doesn't bother telling people that she isn't a medical doctor. And now is in the Daily Mail in this kind of advertorial thing. She says, osteopathy is about creating space. And it is. Space between biology and fantasy, and space in the purse where money used to be. She continues, VOT is no different. It aims to optimize conditions internally for breathing and blood flow. If organs are less constricted, they move in synchronicity with the diaphragm during breathing and with your skeleton and muscles as you walk or run. Again, there's no indication here that the patient they're talking about, that her organs are constricted. Anna, she's a journalist who's trying out a fad weight loss therapy. She didn't go in with a health complaint. Mm-hmm. There's also no good evidence that the constriction of organs is a thing, as far as I can tell. And there's no evidence that poking away at that area with non-medically trained fingers will deconstrict or help anything move with more synchronicity. Mm-hmm. This is meaningless wellness babble, and it doesn't stop there. And it goes on to write, I do let out an involuntary gasp as she focuses on the pancreatic area.
She goes, oh.
Maybe that was it. Maybe Katie was just doing VOT on you. She says, in stimulating that area, there's a good chance the function of the pancreas will be enhanced, Bramati says. The pancreas plays an essential role in digestion, converting food into fuel and regulating blood sugar. So if I can make mine super efficient, why not? Again, the osteopath saying there's a good chance the function of the pancreas will be increased. It will be enhanced, rather. Enhanced how? They don't say.
They say that, well... Read that quote again about what the pancreas does.
In stimulating the area, there's a good chance the function of the pancreas will be enhanced. The pancreas plays an essential role in digestion, converting food into fuel and regulating blood sugar.
It's not strictly true.
Unless she's just describing, unless that last bit is her describing what digestion is.
The pancreas
converting food to fuel is digestion, yeah.
The pancreas is important for digestion, that's correct. The pancreas doesn't itself convert food into fuel. It releases things that allow other parts of the body to convert food into fuel.
But most of the gastrointestinal tract is involved in converting food into fuel.
Yes.
That's the point of having a connection between your mouth and your arse.
The pancreas...
Basically.
The pancreas in particular is purely involved in releasing factors that help other organs digest things.
What kind of factors? Let's kind of dig into this a little bit.
Insulin.
So it releases
most
insulin.
obvious one, yeah.
So if the action of the pancreas was enhanced, does that mean it's producing more insulin? In which case, is that not diabetes? If you're producing the wrong amounts of insulin, is that not effectively what diabetes is in part?
Not quite, but you don't want too much insulin. You don't want too little insulin. It's a fine-tuned balance that
turns
your
out it's already enhanced. It's not enhanced; it's efficient. Yeah,
pretty much got it right. Unless you do have a condition such as diabetes, in which case you've got resistance to insulin and you've got deficiency in how you're producing insulin.
Yeah, and there's no indication that the author of this article had any of those problems. No. So she's saying, if I can make my pancreas super efficient, why not? Well, it already is super. It's efficient enough.
It does its job. Yeah.
You've got a homeostatic system. Even then, the osteopath is saying there's a good chance the function of the pancreas will be enhanced. What does that mean? How good a chance? Are we talking about luck here? Is there some sort of reliable effect to the prodding?
There's no way that it can be enhanced. Your pancreas is so deep. I don't see how any kind of massage would enhance any function of the pancreas.
Synchronicity, Alice.
Obviously. And B, the function of the pancreas is reliant on the presence of cells in the islets of Langerhans. It's dependent on the number of cells and what the cells are doing. You can't change that with massage.
By prodding it from the outside. Yeah, but I mean, we don't have any. Obviously, it doesn't make sense. But even then, even her system, she just says it might work. It might promote this. How can we know? How can we be sure? What are the signs? What are the symptoms? Where's the detail? How do you measure this? This is the stuff. That would be the stuff of science. That would be the stuff of reality. This is just supposition and pseudoscience. It's completely unquestioned.
Well, a scientific claim would be able to give you a number on what the chance is of it having an effect.
Or how.
And what increased function actually means.
Exactly, yeah.
Define your terms is kind of important.
She goes on to say, imagine a stressful job. You slouch over your computer, so your digestion is probably not great. As you're compressing the abdominal area, you're also compressing the neck, creating tension in the back. And is it just convenient that whatever the person is doing is the thing that's causing whatever issues you say the person has? It's like, I think this is what's wrong with you, and I think it's caused by whatever it is that I think you do anyway. But there's no evidence that any of this is happening. There's no way that the authors actually complained of these complaints. It goes on, if we don't look after the gut, it has mental health implications, says Dr. Bramati. And it says the gut is hugely important to our well-being, with 90% of feel-good hormone serotonin coming from it.
I don't know if that's true.
Well, I looked this up.
I think it comes from the brain, doesn't it?
Well, this is the thing, you see. Even if this fact shows a total lack of understanding of biology, it is true, apparently, that about 80 to 90% of serotonin in the body is made in the gut. And that gut serotonin is used in the gut to stimulate nerves and aid motility and aid digestion and do that kind of thing.
Yeah, the gut has its own nervous system that's independent of the rest of your normal.
Yeah, it's completely independent.
Totally independent, but you know what
so
I mean.
It's absolutely true that serotonin's effect on the brain is to produce feelings of well-being and happiness, but that's serotonin the brain uses
from the brain.
Yeah, it creates its own stuff. So your gut has got nothing to do with the manufacture and release serotonin into the brain. They're entirely different systems.
Serotonin, I don't know what its half-life is, whether it could travel through the bloodstream and get into the brain in time. But again, that's being incredibly charitable.
Yeah, the only thing that I looked up, and I didn't spend a huge amount of time on it, was saying that the brain has to create the serotonin for
that
itself.
It needs for itself.
So
yeah.
even if there was an effect of that, it's not appreciable.
Yeah.
And it certainly isn't going to be done by fucking poking your stomach by someone who doesn't have a medical degree, or someone who does have a medical degree even. So she goes on to say, Dr. Bramati believes that manually stretching the stress receptors in the gut can stimulate them if they become sluggish, improving the digestive process, relieving constipation, and helping detox the body. What does this mean? So let's break it down. Do you have stress receptors in the gut, Alice?
Yes.
What would a stress receptor be?
It depends on what stress it's measuring, but usually the most predominant kind of stress receptors in the gut are the ones that tell you you're full, the ones that recognise distension in the gut, that recognise that your stomach is full.
And physiologically, what would those be like?
There's just small proteins that register the mechanical movement, and it is registering a mechanical movement, but that's of the lining of the stomach and the lining of the gut. That kind of movement, that's something that you're not going to be able to stimulate from the outside. It's something that's stimulated from the inside when you have distension of the inside of the gut.
Gotcha. So she's talking about manually stretching those with a massage, using her fingers to manually stretch a stress receptor. How big are these individual stress receptors, would you say, likelihood?
It's not about necessarily the size of them. They're very small because they have to be on the surface of a cell.
Yeah, could you grab both ends of it and stretch it manually with your hands?
No, you couldn't. But that's not what she's saying.
No.
To be fair to her.
It's not far off, though. I would highly doubt. I mean, we can be charitable and say that when she says she's talking about different parts of the gut, but I don't imagine that she is actually stretching it. But also, would you want to stretch a receptor?
No.
Would it be productive to do that? Almost, can it be stretched not from the outside?
Your stretch receptors inside the gut are registering when you've had enough food, when your stomach is full and you've got enough food for your body to handle, and so it releases hormones and things that will help you digest that food, that will tell your brain that you've had enough food, that will stop you feeling hungry, and all of those things can have really dangerous effects if that means that you
stop eating before
satiety.
You need it.
You feel full, you feel like you've had enough food, but you haven't had any food.
Satiety is a quality word.
That is a good word.
It may be the first time it's ever used on the show. Very, very happy with it. Very happy with that.
But even accepting, being charitable, that fiddling with the stress receptors would be a good thing. If it's in the gut or the intestines, how are you meant to stretch it from the outside of the body, outside the organ walls, through all that muscle we've got in our stomach, through the layer of fat that the author said she's wanting to get rid of?
Yeah.
You're just not going to be able to do that with your bare hands, even if it was even a thing. They go on, she treats holistically, so before digging in, she asks about my medical history and habits, from falls and fractures to pregnancies and how much water I drink. I tell her that my third cesarean section, I had adhesions, bands of fibrous tissue that can form between abdominal tissues and the organs, often after surgery. I've had back pain ever since, but it didn't occur to me that it could be related to these adhesions. So, yeah, if she's asking about how many broken bones you've had, then it must be legit, and it must be able to take away a layer of belly fat, because whether you fractured your wrist 20 years ago has a huge bearing on the size of jeans that you wear. It's absolute nonsense. Also, there might be a good reason why you wouldn't connect abdominal fibrous tissue with back pain, and there's also maybe a good reason why, if you're an osteopath with no medical training but a cast iron certainty that all issues at one point or another can be solved by your own pet theory, it's very obvious to see why you would make that link that nobody with an understanding of physiology might make.
It's frustrating as well that she describes, it works holistically because they take a patient history first.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, doctors don't ever do that. No.
Obviously, like doctors quite often will take an extensive patient history, especially for a serious condition. But also, unless the patient history changes the treatment you're getting, it's not holistic in any way. It's just
a waste of time,
great.
yeah.
Well, thanks very much for your autobiography. And now I'm still going to massage you in the somach anyway.
Yeah.
My doctors have always asked me more about what I'm studying than any of my friends ever had.
Really?
Because they want to know what your job is. They want to know how long you're spending doing that job. They want to know what kind of thing you're working on so that they can work out how stressed you are. Like, it's all these things that they take into account to try and work out what might be involved in the symptoms that you're experiencing. If you go in with a cold, they're not going to ask you. If you go in with,
they're definitely going to ask you whether you fractured your wrist when you were 5.
Yeah, but when I go in with my connective tissue disorder or with depression or anxiety or anything like that, they want a complete history. They want to know what your day-to-day life looks like so that they can try and assess whether any of those things are affecting your symptoms.
Because those are relevant questions, yeah. It goes on, VOT is a very physical experience. At one point, Dr. Bramati uses her full weight to bend my leg and push it upwards towards my chest to improve circulation and drainage around the hip area. What drainage? What's draining around the hip area? And at what point did the writer feel like she had poor hip circulation? It's not coming. This is classic behaviour by osteopaths and chiropractors and homeopaths and all of the like. A otherwise healthy person or a person with one particular health complaint comes in, and before they know it, they're diagnosed with all manner of ailments and conditions they've previously had no symptoms of, but which fortuitously can be relieved by the practitioner's pet theory. Just so I'm clear, I don't doubt for a second that this practitioner, Dr. Bramati, or Mrs. Bramati, is sincere in believing that there is an issue with the hip here or the misalignment of the pelvis there or evidence of this, that and the other that she's talking about. And I don't doubt that she's sincere that those things can be treated perfectly well with whatever brand of quackery she's personally peddling. I'm sure she believes it. I'm sure many of those type of people tend to believe it. I'm just saying they're wrong. They've got no reason to believe it, and they don't have the medical qualification to make those judgments. They're not healers. At best, they're a waste of time and money. And at worst, they are, even accidentally, scaremongering healthy people about what happened in this pregnancy and what happened to your wrist here, and this is why you're getting back problems. If I went to a doctor tomorrow and describe, this ache or that feeling of tiredness, things that we all get from time to time. We can all list stuff. That doesn't mean we're ill. The doctor, she'd probably tell me that there's nothing really wrong with me and I don't need treatment. I should go home, try and get a bit more sleep, do a bit more exercise. If I presented to an osteopath, a chiropractor, a homeopath, a traditional Chinese herbalist, or basically any other alternative practitioner with exactly the same symptoms, I'd be astonished if a single one of them didn't decide there was something wrong with me that they could fix with their treatment. And that's just one of the signs that these industries are not led by evidence or expertise or a genuine level of benefit to their patients. Sadly, the claims that are in no way based on evidence are still absolutely rife in the osteopathic industry. Even just last week, the Advertising Standards Authority upheld a complaint made by Laura Thomason, my colleague at Good Thinking, against an osteopath, Nicholas Handel, of the Hereford Clinic of Osteopathy and Complementary Medicine. This guy's continually made misleading advertising claims regarding a range of infant and childhood conditions, despite clear warnings from regulators. And he even claimed on his website, it's a block quote, "Osteopaths are first contact practitioners trained to undertake an initial consultation with any patient, any age. There are many ways in which parents express concern for their children's welfare. Some describe symptoms or conditions such as inconsolable crying, distress, colic, reflux, breathing difficulties, recurrent infections, poor concentration, disruptive behaviour, aggression, head pain, misshapen head, and Down syndrome." It seems pretty clear that osteopath is implying he could treat those conditions, that he could treat Down syndrome or to treat the effects of Down syndrome. And the ASA agreed and told him stop making those claims. Yet, a week or two after it's published, on the ASA website, the claims remain on the guy's site. We'll be expecting to see them taken down in the near future, but we won't hold our breath lest we develop breathing difficulties. For over 2 years, Good Thinking, we've been monitoring osteopathy advertising for misleading claims, specifically about infants and children, and encouraging regulators to act. We persuaded the General Osteopathic Council and the ASA to warn osteopaths against advertising to treat various paediatric conditions. They sent a letter out telling people not to make certain claims. They've issued clear and detailed guidance on what they can and can't say in advertising. And yet, from an audit that Laura carried out recently, we estimate hundreds of osteopaths are still making problematic advertising claims. Even the Institute of Osteopathy, the UK's professional body for osteopaths, can't keep their advertising in order. There's problems in their own advertising. So it's time that the General Osteopathic Council did more than just issuing guidance and advice, because it's really clear that at least a section of osteopaths just aren't listening. They're still claiming to be medical doctors. They're still claiming to be able to treat all manner of ailments with all manner of evidence-free techniques that run counter to any real good understanding of biology. If the GOSE take their duty to regulate osteopaths seriously, they need to take action to ensure their registrants are not misleading the public or the Daily Mail.
Since I've been talking about the placebo effect on the show, I've started noticing more and more instances of it being lauded in the popular press. I don't know if that's just some kind of bias on my part, that I'm more likely to notice references to the placebo effect because I've spent so long talking about it, or whether it's because listeners now actively send me articles about the placebo effect, saying, Mike, look at this.
But you're still down as conspiracy expert on the...
Still as conspiracy expert on Wikipedia.
We give so much shit to Wikipedia. We don't even need to... We didn't have to have a page. They've made us a page. You can carry on giving them shit all you like, but I think they've done a damn fine job.
They've done a damn fine job of getting my specialism wrong. The article I wanted to talk about this week was sent to me by Dave Briggs, otherwise known as Crystal Dave.
I bumped into him in the street the other day.
Yeah, he was just kicking around here, wasn't he? Yeah.
He lives in London. And I was on campus in Liverpool for no real reason, and he was on campus in Liverpool giving a talk for something, and I just randomly bumped into him. It was very bizarre.
Because I saw he tweeted about it, saying, just bumped into Alice from Skeptics with a K, as you do, which is fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, Crystal Dave sent me this. He tagged me into this piece from the American News and Opinion site 538.
Oh, okay.
That's a good site.
Sent this by a couple of other listeners. Sent me this as well. But this was a piece titled "Surgery is One Hell of a Placebo." The article opens with an evocative description of a man suffering with knee pain undergoing a superstitious-sounding healing ritual.
Is he a journeyman, and is he perfectly fine?
He's got knee pain. He makes a journey to see a healer. He undergoes a fasting rite. He dons ceremonial garb and is anointed with liquids by somebody concealing their face with a mask. In fact, this is a deliberately misleading description of a bloke going to hospital. He's nil by mouth because of the anaesthetic. He puts on a hospital gown and is swabbed with iodine by somebody in a surgical mask. Surgeon, one would hope.
Yeah, it would have totally pricked that extended metaphor if he'd mentioned that the surgical gown had no arse on it. It would have been really, we know where it is.
The arseless ceremonial garb.
Yeah.
Chaps, presumably. So we do that. It's the NHS for you, isn't it? They give you ceremonial hospital chaps that you have to wear before you go in for surgery. The article draws parallels between modern medical practices and the more ritualistic, superstitious practices of the pre-scientific age, something that I find quite common in the placebo narrative. Daniel Moorman, the Emeritus Professor of Anthropology at the University of Michigan Dearborn, and a big fan of the placebo effect, is a big advocate of these parallels between the ritualistic, superstitious, pre-scientific stuff and what we do today. In 2011, he wrote an editorial for the New England Journal of Medicine in which he said, "Clinicians often dress up in special uniforms that convey power and authority. They have very expensive machines that can look inside your heart or brain. The magnificence of the hospital building, ours has 2 helipads, the decor of the office, the lights in the operating room, the computers on every lap, and the magical prescription pad, the caring nurse, it piles up meaning with increasing power regardless of what might be in the capsule or the syringe. These meanings create expectations that can dramatically modify the effectiveness of even the most powerful proven treatments."
That's bollocks, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not persuaded by that. And I think this emphasis on the anthropology of all of it, which is not a surprise because he's an anthropologist.
Yeah.
When you have a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, etc. The emphasis on the anthropology of all of this and the idea that ritualistic elements can change outcomes often fails to draw a distinction between the modification of the efficacy of an intervention and the modification of the reported efficacy of an intervention. And these can be quite different things depending on what your outcome measure is.
I'm trying to get to a punchline on a joke that I don't think I can get to, but the punchline would be, when you're MC Hammer, everyone looks like Jimmy Nail. I don't know what the convoluted setup would be.
That's a punchline. You just need a setup line that leads to...
But I mean, that's a very specific punchline. That needs a lot of work in the setup.
And I don't think anyone's made a reference to MC Hammer and Jimmy Nail in the same sentence.
No, that's a Google back. That's a Google back right
there.
Before.
So the difference between the modification of the efficacy of an intervention and the reported efficacy of an intervention are different things. And for more information on that, listen to everything I've said for the last 9 months. But returning to this article from 538, the author goes on to say that these medical rituals, quote, foster an expectation that the procedure will provide relief. These expectations matter, and we know they matter because of a bizarre research technique called sham surgery. In these fake operations, patients are led to believe that they are having a real surgical procedure, but the doctor does not actually perform the surgery. Now, sham surgery. Sham surgery is a thing. Obviously, it's a thing. Although I don't think it's quite as bizarre as 538 seems to think it is. Calls it a bizarre research technique. Maybe that's because we spend a lot of time talking about medical research. Sham surgery seems very clearly to be a useful tool in clinical research for testing the efficacy of surgical interventions.
Yeah, it does completely.
I don't see what's so bizarre about that. You take a stack of patients, you split them into two groups. Half of them get the real surgery, half of them get a fake operation which does nothing, and we compare the outcomes of the two groups. If patients in the surgery wing are different to patients in the fake operation, then the surgery does something, hopefully something good, which we can use to help patients in future. It doesn't seem all that bizarre a research technique to me.
No, completely.
It is also the case, however, that the patients undergoing sham surgery will improve.
Yeah.
And this is where mistakes are being made.
Depends on the surgery. If it's like heart surgery, or if it's like, A&E, then the likelihood is if you do sham surgery on someone who's just been in a car crash, they're less likely to improve.
Well, I've actually
You wouldn't get ethics approval for that, though.
You would struggle.
I've got statistics on that as well coming up.
Oh, lovely.
Stats coming up. Stats coming up.
We should point out, 538 is a stats website, isn't it? They report on stats stuff.
Yeah, they report stats, opinion polls, politics, things like that.
This kind of should be their area of expertise.
Well, aren't they primarily a politics website, though? Doesn't the 538 refer to the number of electoral college wins you need to secure the presidency?
I think it is primarily a political website. Yeah.
They wrote an incredible piece on stats and science, a really long piece, like a year and a half ago or so, that I keep sharing with people.
The stats that I quote, they quote as well. I haven't gone and looked up these stats. They have said these are the statistics and this is the citation, and I've gone to the citation and checked. So I mean, they're quite good in that respect. But the fact that patients undergoing sham surgery will improve does not mean that the sham surgery is responsible for the improvement, or that the patient's expectations of improvement is responsible for the improvement, or the whiteness of the surgical gown, or the fact that the hospital has got 2 helipads. None of that. That it doesn't tell us that any of that is actually responsible for the improvement.
I love the idea of one of the clinical leads at the hospital going to the hospital administrator and saying, our placebos aren't strong enough. We need another helipad. We need a helipad stat. Build a helipad so we can get stronger placebos.
The sham intervention is not there as a second intervention that we are also testing. It is there to capture all of the non-specific contextual effects that would otherwise confound the data in the treatment wing, so we can subtract those from the effect. There are simply too many variables captured in the sham arm for us to draw any conclusions from the sham data. This is inherent in trial design. You want your control to capture every single variable which is going to be captured in your active treatment arm, except for one, and that's the variable you're testing. That allows us to draw meaningful conclusions about that single variable and about little else. 538 quotes a systematic review of surgical procedures from 2014, which found that in about half of all trials, real surgery works no better than sham surgery. And in 74% of trials, patients in the sham surgery group improve. So 74% of sham surgeries, according to the literature, in 74% of trials, patients who receive sham surgery improve after the sham surgery.
Okay.
Which obviously means in 26% of cases
it doesn't. Yeah,
it doesn't.
Yeah.
Rather than drawing the rather obvious conclusion from these data that surgical interventions which do no better than dummy procedures actually don't work, 538 continues and says, such findings show that these procedures don't work as promised, but they also indicate that there is something powerful about believing you are getting surgery and that it will fix what ails you, when they actually have nothing to indicate any such thing. You cannot draw that conclusion from these data because there are too many variables in that sham data for you to draw any conclusion about what is causing the reported improvement in the patients receiving sham. It isn't as simple as saying patients improved after the sham surgery, therefore their expectations resulted in a real therapeutic effect. It's a bit more complicated than that. For example, there is our friend regression to the mean, which is going to play a role here. In many cases, for example, arthroscopic surgery for osteoarthritis of the knee, the patient is suffering with a chronic condition which waxes and wanes. It has peaks and troughs. Patients tend to go to the doctor when their symptoms are peaking, which means the most likely thing that's going to happen next is that their condition will improve, even if the doctor does nothing at all. Beyond that, there are also various biases and social cues, the experimenter effect, the Hawthorne effect, confirmation bias, recall bias, and so on. These are things which can modify what the patient reports, such as pain, even if the pain is unchanged. And if the rituals, if the white coats, if the number of helipads, if the expectations are changing anything, I would argue that they are changing this. Modifying the expectations of the patient changes reported outcomes. But the big question is, when we modify reported outcomes, are we modifying the outcome or the report? Because if we're only changing the latter, that is going to lead to unreliable and misleading findings. Unfortunately, despite 538 recognising this, and they even talk about regression to the mean in the article and say, this is a thing that could cause the apparent improvements in sham surgery, they still seem, for the general tone of the article, to toe the line of a therapeutic placebo effect, which I felt was a shame because otherwise the article hits all the right points.
Yeah.
Now, the article finishes with a section that I found particularly interesting and is largely unrelated to the placebo effect. From 538, they say, even without a robust placebo effect, an ineffective surgery may seem helpful. That softening of symptoms from an extreme measure of pain is an example of the statistical concept known as regression to the mean. And then there's car repair logic. Something looks broken, so you try and fix it. A patient comes in with knee pain, an X-ray or an MRI shows a tear in the meniscus. The tendency is to assume that the torn meniscus is the cause of the pain and that should be fixed. However, surgeries show that MRIs can find all sorts of quote-unquote abnormalities, such as cartilage damage, even among people without knee pain. One such study looked at MRI scans of more than 300 knees and found that there is no direct link between meniscus damage and pain. You can have a meniscal tear without having any problems.
That's quite interesting.
I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, surgery predates the randomized control trial. We've been doing surgery for a long time.
Yeah.
And it can fall into that class of medical interventions that we just know work and haven't actually been properly tested. Because who is applying for grant money to see if setting a broken bone will help?
Yeah.
No one is doing that. That is self-evident. Why are we even applying for a grant on that? But of course, without those properly conducted trials, we can mislead ourselves. A surgeon repairs a meniscus and the patient improves. How do we know the repair caused the improvement? A surgeon may claim that it is self-evident, but the data shows that there is actually no independent relationship between a meniscal tear and knee pain. You just see the problem, assume that the problem is the cause of the symptom, fix that problem, and then regression to the mean means the patient improves, and you think, great, happy days.
It works, we'll do that next time.
I fixed it, we'll do that next time round. I briefly read through the citation for this link that shows there is no independent relationship between meniscal tear and knee pain. This was a 2007 paper from Osteoarthritis Clinical Studies. And it seems that from the conclusion and the results in this paper, they say that both meniscal tears and pain are associated with osteoarthritis of the knee, but they are not associated with each other. So if you have osteoarthritis of the knee, you're more likely to have a meniscal tear, you're more likely to have knee pain. But having a meniscal tear does not make you more likely to have knee pain. So given that these are not associated with each other, at least not independently associated with each other, why are surgeries still being done? From 538, they say, surgeons who only perform real surgeries never see the benefit of a sham procedure and so may falsely attribute their patient's success to the surgery without recognizing that regression to the mean and placebo effect may also contribute. Now, this underscores the need, to me, for tightly controlled trials and founding our medical practice in robust science. A surgical procedure which does nothing to benefit the patient is the definition of unnecessary surgery. And unnecessary surgery carries with it significant risk. General anesthetic is not without risk. Some people will die on the operating table from that alone. There is also risk of infection. There's a risking of damaging organ B when you're trying to repair organ A, and so on and so forth. That surgical procedures continue to be done without robust evidence that they're helping should be a medical scandal. But when trials are being done that show arthroscopic debridement is no more effective than sham for treating osteoarthritis of the knee, people are cheering the sham intervention and hailing the amazing power of the placebo effect.
We have a listener question. From Andrew, who said, Dear Swack, thank you for your continued series on British language, food and culture for those not in the UK. In search of a Karamak, I checked on the international section of my local supermarket. Unfortunately, they only had Bounty, Aero, Lion, and Fruit Pastels. The section
That's a poor selection.
It is quite a poor
I don't
selection.
like a fruit pastel.
I like Fruit Pastels.
I mean, they're very, very fruity.
Fruit pastel, was that the advertising slogan?
That was their
Okay,
ad for the
good,
slogan
thanks.
for a while. The other advertising slogan Fruit Pastels had was that something about you had to chew them. You can't help but chew it, or something along those lines.
That was
Wasn't
Chewits,
that
wasn't
the
it?
Chewit advert?
No.
Oh, no, it is. I can't remember it now, but yeah.
I don't
The
remember
only
what
thing
it
you
was.
can really do with a round cheese fruit pastel is chew.
That's the one.
I don't remember that, but
Which means when I was about 14, I bought a packet of Fruit Pastels and sucked every one of them.
you're such a dick.
Just to prove the point. I am not chewing this at any point. I'm sucking an entire packet of Fruit Pastels until it's gone.
Oh, such a dick. So what was this one? Bounty? A Bounty's all right.
I don't like Bounties. I don't
Bounty's
like
all right.
coconut flavoured things.
How do you feel about the lack of cardboard in them, though?
The lack of cardboard in a Bounty is a disgrace. I've also got my theory of Bounties, which I think I mentioned briefly on the show before, because a Bounty comes in 2 little bars.
Yes.
I've never had a Bounty because I know I won't like them.
It comes in 2 little bars, like 1.5 inches.
They're like a
long
horizontal
each,
Twix.
2 inches each. Like a horizontal Twix, end to end.
Yeah.
And it seems peculiar that they come in 2 little bars instead of 1 big bar.
Is one little bar one serving? In that RDAs or something?
It predates all that nonsense where they start
Where they
just
cared about
2
obesity,
servings on the side of a individual bottle of Coke.
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it?
But I think it is because the tensile strength of a full width Bounty bar.
Oh, because it's like all
You think it would
coconut
snap in the
with-
middle?
I think it would fall in half.
No, see, I think the coconut, like even desiccated coconut, which I just like saying desiccated, different from desecrated coconut. It's like a holy coconut that you then piss on. But desiccated coconut, I think it's got a little bit of a moisture to it that you can sort of mash it together like wet rice.
Yeah, I don't think it would stay up. I think if you held a full width Bounty by the end, it would snap in half.
Nah, I don't think that's true. I don't think
it
that's
would.
true.
I think it would collapse under its own weight like an oversized beetle.
An oversized beetle.
Yeah. I don't mean like John Lennon.
Fat John Lennon, yeah, that's what happened, yeah. So it's-
We saw. I didn't mention the last time we recorded, but we went to the Basilica Festival in Liverpool, which we usually go to the parade every year, and like in dwindling numbers each year. Last year it was just me and Marsh that went. This year I went with Laurie and Karen, and we saw a very weird, massive John Lennon
Right.
as part of the parade.
Enormous John Lennon collapsing under his own weight like an oversized beetle.
No idea why.
further down the
Absolutely.
parade was a massive Mark Chapman.
They also had an entire group dressed up as Alice in Wonderland characters for a
Okay.
Brazilian festival and samba festival, and they had loads of people dressed in like proper, I've now forgotten the word, steampunk costumes.
Okay, nice.
Again, totally irrelevant to the theme of Brazilian Basilica Festival, but yeah, it was really bizarre.
Okay, we haven't actually got to the question.
I haven't got to the
at this-
question
at
yet.
this
So
point.
we're just analysing. So the other one he had in there was lion bars as well.
don't
I think
like
lion
lion
bars are
bars.
terrible.
Yeah,
I don't like chocolate. I don't like chocolate with nuts in it either.
It is a lion bar. What is it like a toffee crisp with a wafer through the middle?
I think it is, yeah.
It's weird, isn't it?
It is.
That's two things.
And they apparently when you like split one in half,
They go.
that's how it works.
They also had an Aero bar in here. I like an Aero.
I like an
Aero's
Aero.
I would never choose to have an Aero though.
No, would you go for you go for a whisper?
I would never choose an Aero, but if I was presented with an Aero, I'd be
I'd eat
quite
an
happy.
Aero,
You'd be
yeah.
happy. What about an Aero
Not
mint?
an Aero mint. I hate mint
Yeah,
chocolate.
I'd be happy with an Aero mint. I like a good mint chocolate.
I don't like mint and chocolate together.
Mint and chocolate or orange and chocolate.
Orange and chocolate, I'm good with. Mint and
Chocolate
chocolate.
orange might be my favourite chocolate.
Really?
Have
I realise
you
this because you only
tried-
get them on festive reasons. But yeah,
Have you tried popping candy chocolate orange?
yes,
It's amazing. It's amazing. I've got like 3 bags up there because
pretty good.
people buy it me for Christmas, and then I keep it to when I fancy. I don't really eat that much chocolate, so I don't fancy chocolate very often.
Back to the chocolate question though.
The section was dominated by digestives.
Ugh.
Could you address the relative merits of the various types of biscuit?
I don't mind a digestive biscuit.
I like a digestive. I prefer a chocolate digestive dunked in tea, but I wouldn't.
Yes.
I would
Yes.
pick a normal digestive over a chocolate digestive if there was a lack of tea.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'd always go for the chocolate digestive, but I'd normally go for chocolate hobnob. We had this conversation on the show that we skipped the intro on a couple of weeks ago because we recorded Nicola on the conversation and then it dropped. And we happened, before this question came in, we had this very conversation because I'd gone shopping for some groceries and asked Nicola what kind of biscuits to get. And she said, get some chocolate digestives. And I came home happy with some chocolate hobnobs. And she's like, why'd you get chocolate hobnobs? And I said, say, well, they're better than digestives. They're they're one step up from a digestive.
I mean, I agree they are an improvement on a digestive. And
Vast improvement.
I think Alice is wrong about this. But when you have specifically been tasked with chocolate digestives...
In fact, specifically, I said to Nicola, what biscuits do you want? Because if I just get any random ones, you'll normally get really annoyed and say, oh, why did you buy them? Because you want some fucking rich tea fingers or something like that. And she said, get some chocolate digestives. So, right, fine, I will. And I came back with chocolate hobnobs, which is
so
ridiculous.
you asked her for something, asked her to give you a specific thing to get, and you failed to listen.
Hobnobs are better than digestives. They've got like an naughtiness to them, squidgy naughtiness.
I like the flavour of a hobnob, but they're too dry.
With chocolate.
I love an oaty
and dip them in a bit of tea.
Oaty cookie or biscuit, but hobnobs are too dry, and they're a choking hazard. They've got like...
They're not a choking hazard.
You inhale when you're eating
supposed
a
to bite and chew them.
But he's mentioned specifically digestives, and I know this from Katie, that Americans think having a biscuit called a digestive is a weird thing, and it sounds a bit gross, like digestion sounds like a horrible.
Is it meant to be to aid digestion? Is that the?
They're very dry and plain, and
I looked
can
this
imagine
up at the
they'd be
time
good for...
that when they first came out, when they were first published, if you like, a digestive.
Yes,
It was meant to be. They were easy to digest, or they were an aid to digestion.
Aren't most biscuits easy to digest?
They've got quite a bit of fibre in them, I guess, a digestive.
Yeah, but
I guess a hobnob would as well because of the oats.
These were specifically about they were
marketed as digestive aids.
Aided your digestion, and those claims have long since fallen away, and they don't make those claims for them anymore. But they're still called digestive biscuits. And obviously, we're raised in a culture where digestive biscuits, type of biscuit. We don't necessarily make that association the association with digestion.
What is the bog standard biscuit to you? If someone says biscuit, what do you picture?
Digestive.
I think I picture digestive.
Yeah, it's a standard biscuit.
Second would be custard cream.
Yeah,
custard creams are standard.
Custard creams and bourbons, kind of.
Custard creams and bourbons, yeah.
I don't like a custard cream. I like a bourbon.
I like a custard cream. They've got a fuckload of fat in them, though.
They're really sugary and sweet. And
they do chocolate custard creams now, which I don't see the point because that's a bourbon.
It depends what the middle.
I would say a chocolate custard cream is going to be sweeter than a bourbon.
Define a custard cream for our American listeners.
It's like plain, quite sweet vanilla biscuit with a creamy vanilla smush in the middle, in between two biscuits.
And also, we need to bear in mind that biscuit means cookie. If you're American here, this is not biscuit like that weird scone thing you guys covered in gravy.
Also, custard doesn't mean custard either. Basically,
no.
They don't have biscuits, custard, or custard cream.
I'm not sure to what extent custard is a thing in the United States either.
Yeah.
Again, this is just going from my wife, who's from Texas, and it might be the case that in New York they're all going, we have custard every day, what are you talking about? And they just don't do it in Texas, so my American knowledge is limited here.
In Texas these custards don't run.
I remember it
which might be true if they have a very thick custard in Texas.
Brilliantly, obviously in the UK we use the word pudding to refer to all desserts.
Yeah.
So you would say, I'd like to have some pudding.
No, I don't. It seems too middle class and eaten.
Sure, but you can't pretend that isn't something that happens. I would
call it dessert a pudding.
It's definitely something that happens. The last QED, we're all out on the Sunday night, and we're out with Tom and Cecil and Eli from those. They do too many podcasts between them for us to name one. And the waitress came over and said, "Do you want pudding?" And they were like, I'm a grown-ass man. Why the fuck would I want pudding? Because pudding to Americans is essentially chocolate baby food.
Yeah.
It's this kind of smudgy
like a pudding pop thing.
And then when they realised pudding meant a fucking cheesecake, they were like, shit, I'd have had pudding if I knew. But they were massively indignant that he'd been offered pudding. Like, why the fuck would I want pudding?
My standard biscuit when I was a kid was what I always called cow biscuits, which were a malted milk.
Malted
they've got
milk.
Because they've got a picture
of a cow on them, malted milk, a malt flavoured kind of biscuit thing there,
Bit of malted milk.
You know what's always shit? Always goes quickly, though, from the box of assorted... Because Americans wouldn't have a box of assorted biscuits. Whereas you know what's in a biscuit... I think we can all go through what's in a biscuit assortment. You get a Cadbury's finger.
Yeah.
Always one of them chocolate finger in there. Long, thin baguette of a biscuit covered in chocolate.
Yeah.
You get a couple of custard creams.
Sure.
A couple of bourbons.
Yeah.
A couple of standard digestives. A couple of chocolate digestives.
Yeah.
Then you get like a pink wafer.
You may get a pink wafer in there.
Which is just creepy as fuck.
You may get a pink wafer.
Yeah.
Don't mind a pink wafer. I'll eat a pink wafer.
I hate wafer. It makes me feel really nauseous or nauseated.
Yeah, I think a pink wafer is what happened if you skinned the Pink Panther and then tanned his hide. Just let his hide dry out, you get a pink wafer. Then you'd get, I would say, maybe a malted milk. could get a malted milk in there. But then it's the fucking ring with the icing on top.
Party ring.
Shit.
Yeah.
I love them. I go through
Terrible.
phases. I go through phases where I'm properly addicted to party rings and eat them near constantly.
It's the hardest icing in the world.
Yeah, they're amazing.
They're terrible.
They're just
It's
pure
so...
sugar. They're so like I
It's a
don't like
shit
a custard
biscuit.
cream because it's too sweet.
Yeah.
But a party ring is just pure sweet.
But it's a shit biscuit with like a layer of
They're
impenetrable...
crunchy. They've got a really good texture because
Too
they're
much
kind of
crunch.
crunchy.
They're too smooth on top. They're totally
Oh,
weird.
they're great. I love them.
But you get them, and then you'd probably get a jammy dodger. Or not a jammy dodger, but one of the fake jammy
With a
dodgers
fake
that have got
yeah,
the
with
little
the crystallized
speckly bits on top of the
sugar
thing.
on top.
Yeah. That's your average biscuit assortment.
Love a jammy
Something like
dodger. I
I like a
adore
real
a jammy
jammy
dodger.
that. A real jammy dodger,
Yeah, those shit ones are shit, aren't they?
yeah. And then occasionally they'll throw in like a chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah.
in there.
I like a chocolate chip cookie. I like the Maryland chocolate chip cookies. They're really
they're
they're
good.
really more.
But it's weird how like a biscuit assortment, they're all the same mix.
Yeah,
You get them
they
made by
usually are.
different manufacturers, but it's
They
the
also-
same
It's
number.
a ridiculous concept because they go stale immediately.
And it's a
As soon
big
as you
box,
open- yeah, you
but they've
get
got a little
loads of
plastic in
biscuits.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
So you don't get that many biscuits, really,
No,
for the
no,
size of the box. It's like, I'm going to get loads in here, and then it's all filled with just plastic.
But they still go
And then that
stale.
little sort of jiggedy layer. And then you have the etiquette of, there's like 6 biscuits in the top layer. What's the tipping point
When
by which you're allowed to go
into
into the second layer?
I would never advocate going into the second layer until
Before the first layer is
the first layer
finished.
is completely
Of course
done.
you wouldn't, but
Until
that's
the
a
first
weird
layer. If you have to
position.
sit there and eat that fucking pink wafer, then that's the price you pay to be able to get the chocolate digestive underneath.
Do you stand by the same policy if it's Christmas, and after Christmas you've been given the customary and standard single box of roses, single box of Golden Street?
I get annoyed by this every single year because I love roses.
Yeah.
I love them. They're my favourite chocolate box that
Yeah,
you can
they
get.
are the
I
best of them, yeah.
absolutely love them. And every year I say to people, I love roses. I want roses for Christmas. And nobody ever gets me
You
roses.
get Quality Street instead.
I get shit things. I get
Or
Quality Street.
Celebrations.
Or I get
Miniature Heroes.
a plain orange.
Miniature Heroes are the worst.
Miniature Heroes are pretty bad. Or I often get like just a plain. I get Quality Streets a lot, which I don't eat anything from a box of Quality Streets apart from the green triangle.
Also, it's Nestle, in it?
Or I get like a plain orange, chocolate orange, which I never get around to eating because I don't eat chocolate that often.
Don't get around to eating a plain orange chocolate
I've probably
orange.
got like three knocking around somewhere. You can have them. I don't
Ridiculous.
because there's too much chocolate. You can't.
We don't eat them in one go unless you're Mike's niece. That's a very old story.
I might fancy chocolate like once a month. So I'd open a chocolate orange and have 3 or 4 segments of chocolate orange, and then it goes stale because it's
It doesn't go stale.
Chocolate goes horrible if it's left
Does it
open.
goes-
Reseal
white.
it. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it goes white as
By the
well.
time
The
I get
white
round
stuff
to
on
finishing
chocolate
them.
and the green stuff on cheese is perfectly fine too.
There's more to this question. So,
Fine.
So we'd been asked to address the relative merits of the various types of biscuits, which I think we've done in quite some detail. So that was the first part of the question. The second part of the question was another UK-based podcast that purports to be fact-based reported that the chocolate on the hobnobs is actually on the bottom. Is that possibly true?
No.
See, I think it is. I think the top is the plain bit.
Why?
Because for chocolate digestive, the bit that they put the chocolate on is the bit that doesn't have the writing on it, is the bit of the top. That's the top. It's the top of the bit.
You've never in your life eaten a chocolate digestive with
No,
a
I
chocolate
would-
facing down?
Yeah, I would eat it upside down.
No,
But that's
you wouldn't.
still
You would
upside
eat it the
down.
right way up.
They make them upside down.
No.
You eat them the right way up.
They make them the right way round because
Why
that's
do they?
their biscuits.
No, because there's loads of things that during the manufacturing process are made upside down, but you wouldn't keep them upside down at the end. What about if you got one of those little puddings, in fact, like a little thing that you get from like Marks and Spencer, somewhere like that, where it's got a little bit of sponge in it and a little seal on top, and then you warm them up, and then you put them on a plate. You take the seal off, you turn it, and you decant the thing out of the plastic container onto a plate. That pudding's the right way up, even though the top of that was at the bottom of the container, because they put it in the container upside down.
No, the lid's just on the bottom.
Yes, exactly.
The lid is on the bottom.
Exactly, but they're
the
made
chocolate
that.
is on the bottom.
But they're made that way as well. So
I don't understand you.
those sponge desserts, you start off with the plastic cup. And in the manufacturing, you start with a plastic cup. You fill that with sponge
that's
dessert.
just because that's
put
how
a lid on
molds
it.
work. That's just how molds work.
Yes,
But the biscuits aren't. That's
biscuits aren't molded. They just
Well, no, they
somebody
are,
writes
but also-
digestive on there by hand, Alice. It's not like they just
But
cram
also,
another crap in a mold.
They will put the chocolate on, chocolate side up, when they put the chocolate on, because otherwise it's going to stick to stuff.
So what you're saying is, you think that digestives, the chocolate's on the bottom, because when they're made, the chocolate's on the bottom. Although, as you point out, they're not made with the chocolate on the bottom either.
Because the top has got the print on it.
You've just said when they're made with the chocolate on top. When you eat them, they're made with the chocolate on top. But you think every other point in between those 2 points, it's the correct way up.
The other way up.
So you're saying that the only time a digestive is ever the right way up is when it's in the packet.
Yes.
At no other point in its production.
Or if you put it on a plate. If you put chocolate digestives on a plate, you would put them chocolate side down.
You wouldn't. You'd put them chocolate side up. Otherwise, because you're wrong. Otherwise, what if you had a biscuit assortment on a plate? You've got the chocolate side down. You've got next to a normal digestive. You've stealth chocolate in there. Anybody who's lactose intolerant, you're basically playing Russian roulette with them.
You can see the chocolate around the edges.
Or you can turn it the right way up like a normal human being would.
Also, but then the writing's on the wrong side.
I don't need to read the writing. I know what the biscuit is.
I believe it is the case that you're wrong as well, that they apply the chocolate to the bottom as it is going through. They kind of float through a layer of chocolate.
Okay.
If you see what I mean,
that makes sense.
Is how that works, rather than.
But then how do they dry it?
They go
they
through
must
that
flip
way
them
up
upside down to let the chocolate dry.
Yeah, they flip them the right way up to allow the chocolate to dry.
They make them the right way up. They dip them in chocolate, turn them back the right way up, put them in the packet. You take them out. You hold it the right way up.
Now, I should point out that one of the reasons why this question came up is you said it was mentioned on another UK-based podcast. The reason it came up on that is because it was a thing on the radio a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the reason that came up is apparently the manufacturer of the biscuits in question said the chocolate is on the bottom. That's the definitive answer. That's come from the manufacturer. Yeah. Now, I think the manufacturer is full of shit.
He's full of shit.
But that is the...
But it's their biscuit.
That is manufacturers of food are always full of shit. Have you ever seen on the back of a cornflakes what they think is a serving portion? It's like, 22 grams or something like that. Have 5 flakes. Yeah, you're full of shit, manufacturer. Nobody in their life has ever had a single... Nobody survives on a variety pack's worth of cereal, ever.
So, listeners, if you've got a question...
If it's about things like British eggs, then...
British eggs?
We usually
I've got
have
a whole bit on British eggs that I can do. I've got a whole bit on British eggs.
There is an argument about what temperature your eggs should be kept at.
Let's not do it now. Let's save it.
I'm saying we should, but if somebody asks us...
If a question comes in, we might have that conversation.
Who knows?
We tend to ramble on for a while on questions like that, so either ask more of them or ask less of them, depending on what you like from this show. Some people hate when we ramble on.
What's the email address, Alice?
podcast@motorsideskeptics.org.uk.
At no point did you know when you were done there. That was the clever hands effect in action. You're just looking at Mike the entire time and just
subtly
kept saying clauses
keep going
until you're satisfied with you.
So QED, we've not talked about QED very much on the show the last couple of weeks, but quite a few things have happened QED-wise. So we've announced Skeptic Camp, so there's going to be a Skeptic Camp at QED.
That's true.
We'd fully anticipated doing this the whole time, but we never know until we've got it sorted out what's going to come off and what isn't going to come off.
Yes, that's the Friday before QED. If you want to give a skeptical talk, you can go to our website, find the form to submit your idea for a 15-minute skeptical talk, and you can be a speaker at the Skeptic Camp, and lots of people just sort of turn up and watch you.
Yeah, so that's the Friday before QED.
13th.
At the venue, which is the...
I don't know if anyone's going to do a talk on triskaidekaphobia.
On Friday, because it is Friday the 13th, the day before QED is Friday the 13th, so that's going to be interesting. So, Skeptic Camp is Friday the 13th of October at QED. Now, if you're not coming to QED, if you don't have a QED ticket, QED tickets are available, QED.org. But you can attend Skeptic Camp without having a QED ticket. So if you're just based in Manchester and you want to come along, you're perfectly welcome to come along. And even if you don't have a QED ticket, you can come along. You can take part in Skeptic Camp. You can just watch Skeptic Camp. It's entirely up to you. The whole event is entirely free.
Although if you are based in Manchester, you might as well come to QED.
I'd just pop along to QED.
It's on your doorstep. You don't have the travel costs. You don't have the hotel costs. It's pretty easy by that point, guys. Definitely
just pop along to QED anyway. So as I say, information about that is available at qedcon.org and at skepticcamp.co.uk. We've also announced a few weeks ago now, we announced this, that our MC for this year is going to be Dave Annick.
It is, yeah.
Dave Annick.
Dave.
Who got a crafty reference in a recent Captain Disillusion video, which made me roar. I mean, I fucking love an in-joke.
Yeah.
I adore an in-joke. I roared with fucking laughter at
Is an in-joke like an Englishman, Irish and Scotsman went into a bar? Is that an in-joke?
What I loved
Depends where the bar is.
What I loved about that reference that Captain Disillusion threw into Dave is
You're not going to say what the reference is.
No, he just casually mentions Dave Anik.
Well, he shows Dave Anik's face and goes, Dave, for not much of a reason, really, but it's fine.
I imagine the Venn diagram overlap of people who know who Dave Anik is, this relatively niche comedian magician.
Up-and-coming magician, yeah.
And I think Dave's going to be really big, and which is one of the reasons I'm really excited to have got him for QED to MC us. Obviously, he did the Saturday night for us last year and was spectacular.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
But I imagine there is the Venn diagram overlap between people who know who Dave Anik is, who, seen him live or, saw him at QED or whatever, and the Venn diagram of Captain Disillusion listeners, which is tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. That's a small overlap.
Well, I think it's basically QED.
Yeah.
It's the QED audience, I think, by and large.
Small overlap.
Which is pretty
and
cool.
I love that Captain D has thrown that gag in for such a tiny number of his audience who are going to love and appreciate that joke. But Dave Anik is going to be emceeing for us. As I say, he was spectacular last year in the cabaret.
He is also, if anybody's going to the Edinburgh Fringe, where you can see me and see Alice, check out Dave as well. His shows always are absolutely packed. He's always on the free fringe, which means you can turn up and pay what you like, but you need to queue for his shows because he'll always be absolutely packed. But we always highly recommend going along with his shows. I think he was named in The Independent as one of the acts to watch at the Fringe this year, which is really cool.
He was, but he's an incredibly talented magician. I hope and pray that Dave's heading for big things with his career. And so you can see him at QED, where he's going to be our Master of Ceremonies. So you can find more information about QED at qedcon.org. Tickets are £109, £75 if you're a student or if you're under 18. If you're listening to this show and it's still, it's not like 2050 or something like that, you should definitely come to QED.
You should definitely
come to QED. It's going to be brilliant. I'm going to be there. Marsh's going to be there. Alice, you're going to be there.
You'll talk to people.
We're going to be doing a live show.
We are going to be doing a live show. I forgot about that.
We're going to be doing a live show at QED. Have we told Alice this time?
Finally.
Eventually.
I mean, we did announce it before we told Alice.
That's true.
I like how you're saying told Alice rather than asked Alice.
That's true. Also, well, that is also true.
Yeah, but at the same time, come on, let's face it. You're going to be a holdout. You're going to go, no, I'm not going to do a live show. I'm definitely already coming to QED anyway. I'm going to watch the live show. I'm going to watch you guys sit for 1/3 of your time on stage in silence at the bit where I would have otherwise have been.
That would be brilliant. If we could do that as episode 206 partial content, then I'll be very
happy.
Happy.
Be very
People will
fitting.
complain if I don't speak on the show. People complain if I don't say enough.
That is true.
They
we
often
complain because you don't pull your weight.
They often complain that you guys have said too much. They complain if I don't say enough. So
I mean, I've definitely said too much. £109, £75 if you're a student or if you're under 18, qedcon.org. We also have Katie Steckles is coming to talk to Merseyside Skeptics. That's a week today. She's talking about maths hacks.
Yep.
That's going to be in the...
That's maths hacks, not maths hacks.
I think that's going to be really interesting. I'm quite excited about that, despite the fact that I absolutely hate maths. But I'm excited about the talk.
I think it's going to be really interesting. You're not going to be there, neither am I.
Is it when we're away?
It is when we're away.
Damn it!
So that's going to be brilliant. That's going to be in the Vines, which is our regular venue on Lime Street from 7:30 p.m. And that is a week today. We also have an event that we've just booked, which is Chris Coltrane. So Chris Coltrane, for the last few years, has come and done a version of his Edinburgh show for us, exclusively as a little Merseyside Skeptics thing, operating on a free fringe basis, where it's turn up and pay what you think it's worth. And trust me, it's worth it. It is. I mean, it's worth coming. We get a full room every time, and Chris is brilliant. Chris is absolutely brilliant. So that's going to be
Chris. He's a good guy.
On the 28th of September, again in the Vines.
I think as well this year at Edinburgh, he's actually doing the same show twice a day because he has to turn people away from the free fringe show that he does most years. That the venue have said, could we stick another session on, another show?
Matinee performance on.
Yeah, exactly. So he's doing 2 shows a day for the majority of the fringe of the same show. That's
so luckily we've booked him for like the end of the September after he's had chance to recover a little bit from.
Yes,
and also at the end of the fringe, which means it'll be better.
Yeah,
improve throughout the fringe. So that's good.
He's done all the work. So That's not one of our regular talks. That's not on one of our regular dates. That's a little bonus event that we're putting on. But if you're in the Liverpool area, come along for that. And if you're not in the Liverpool area, it's a gig worth travelling for. So
yes, it is. Always good.
Come down and see Chris. That's on the 28th of September. Aside from that, that is all we have time for.
Thanks, so.
All that remains then is for me to thank Marsh for coming on today.
Thank you.
And thank you to Alice.
Thank you.
We have been Skeptics with a K, and we will see you next time.
Bye now.
Bye.
Skeptics with a K is a production of the Merseyside Skeptics Society. For more information, visit our website www.merseysideskeptics.org.uk or email podcast@merseysideskeptics.org.uk.